came home a day early. No warning, no text from the airport, just a quiet plan to surprise Hannah. She'd been away for a week at this coastal wellness program out in California. Sounded legit, the kind of thing Claire would have roped her into. Juice cleanses, sunrise yoga, maybe some digital detoxing. And it had been a rough quarter at work. Long hours, short patience, so I figured, why not make a gesture? Show up with takeout from her favorite Thai place. See her face light up, maybe curl up on the couch and talk like we used to. I'd built the whole moment in my head. Instead, I walked through the front door and found her already home. Her bag was slouched by the hallway bench like she'd just dropped it there minutes ago. Her keys were still in the lock. I froze for a second, processing. Maybe she had the same idea, surprise me early, beat me to the punch. But even then, something didn't sit right. That duffel looked heavier than when she left. And it was open. She appeared at the top of the stairs, still in travel clothes, hair up, phone in her hand. For a second, I was just glad to see her. She looked beautiful, tired in a good way. But then I caught it. A flicker of surprise in her expression, a microsecond of discomfort before she smiled. "Alex?" she said, descending the stairs. "What are you doing here? I thought you were back tomorrow." "I switched my flight. Figured I'd surprise you." I smiled, holding up the bag of takeout. "Looks like we had the same idea." She hugged me, and I kissed her cheek, but she felt stiff. Not exactly cold, but not like someone who had missed me. She smelled like the peppermint oil she uses for migraines, something she never travels with. "You okay?" I asked. She nodded, quick. "Yeah, just tired." That retreat was intense. We stood in the kitchen while she poured herself a glass of water, and I noticed her phone face down on the counter. Another first. Normally she didn't care if it buzzed, it buzzed. This time, she angled it away from me before going to the fridge. "Want wine?" she asked, already grabbing a bottle. I blinked. "Since when do you offer wine?" She paused. "I just thought. You've been under pressure lately. Thought you might want to unwind." I didn't push it, but I noticed she didn't pour herself a glass. She never did. While she showered upstairs, I brought her duffel into the bedroom. She'd left it open, maybe on purpose, maybe not. I told myself I wasn't snooping. I was just unpacking for her, trying to be helpful. But I already had a weird feeling in my gut. You don't unsee those little flickers. And I couldn't ignore the way her tone had changed. Too calm, too rehearsed. Right on top of her clothes was an envelope from a boutique hotel in Santa Barbara. Classy logo, heavy cardstock. I pulled out the paper and read it 3 times to be sure. 3-night stay, king suite, 2 guests, room service charges, spa vouchers, double occupancy. The total was way too high for a solo wellness trip, and I knew she'd said the program was hosted out of a private retreat house, not a hotel. I flipped the receipt over and saw a handwritten note from someone named Marie, thanking them both for choosing the property for their romantic getaway. "We hope to host you again for your anniversary." My heart started to race. I told myself it could have been a booking error. Maybe Claire had joined late. Maybe they were upgraded. Maybe anything. I set the receipt aside and walked into the living room. Her phone was still there, screen lit up with a notification. I wasn't going to check it. I didn't want to be that guy. But when I glanced down, it wasn't a message. It was an email receipt. Dinner for 2. Luna's by the Sea, Santa Barbara. 11:43 p.m. 2 entrees. 1 whiskey. 1 glass of wine. I stared at the screen until it dimmed again. Hannah didn't drink. She got migraines from wine and hated how whiskey tasted. She also told me the program had lights out by 10, something about keeping the circadian rhythm in sync. This wasn't adding up. Trying to clear my head, I walked out to the garage. Her car was still coated in the fine layer of dust you pick up on long drives, and something in the back caught my eye. I opened the trunk. Underneath a rolled yoga mat and a bundle of towels was a navy blue windbreaker. Definitely not hers. I pulled it out and held it up. Men's size L, Columbia brand. Smelled faintly like sea air and aftershave. Inside the collar, a stitch tag. T. Maddox. I just stood there, holding it, while my brain tried to stall. Tom. Tom Maddox. Claire's husband. The one who Hannah swore she barely knew. The one she always said gave her weird vibes. The guy who once called her sweetheart at a party and got an eye roll in response. I stood in the driveway staring at the windbreaker like it might vanish if I blinked hard enough. My heart was pounding, ears ringing. I walked back inside and tossed the jacket on the couch. When Hannah came back down in her robe, towel in her hair, she saw it instantly. She froze for less than a second, then walked over and picked it up like she was examining a rock she found in the yard. "Oh, that?" she said, flipping the collar like she hadn't noticed the name. "I think Claire must have put it in my trunk by accident. Probably Tom's. He picked her up from the airport, I think." "She didn't fly back with you?" "No, her flight got delayed or something. I didn't want to wait, so I took an Uber to her place and grabbed my stuff." "Where did you stay?" She blinked. "The retreat center." "Not a hotel?" She furrowed her brow. "Oh, yeah, the first night we stayed at a hotel nearby because the program hadn't started yet. It was some kind of mix-up with the dates, but they comped it. Super weird. But nice place, actually." "And the dinner for two?" She smiled softly, tilting her head. "You really went through my phone?" It lit up. "I didn't. Alex," she said, cutting me off gently. "You've been so tense lately. You're overthinking. I get it. Your brain goes into loops when you're burned out." She moved closer and brushed my shoulder with her hand. "I know you're trying to piece it together, but it's all just bad timing. Claire was supposed to be with me, the spa was part of the retreat, and the hotel night was just logistics. The jacket? Probably tossed in with my things when we were packing. You know how chaotic Claire gets." "Did you see Tom?" "No," she said instantly. "Too fast." "No, I didn't. I mean, maybe once when he dropped Claire off. But barely." I didn't say anything. "Look," she said, lowering her voice. "You've been working crazy hours. You haven't been sleeping. I come home and you're digging through bags and receipts? That's not you, babe. That's stress talking." She took my hand and squeezed it, like she was comforting a nervous child. "Let's not make this into something it's not," she said with a small, careful smile. For the next few days, I tried to pretend everything was fine. That's the thing about suspicion, it doesn't punch you in the face. It leaks. It drips into your mind like a faucet you can't shut off. And once it starts, you notice everything. Every pause. Every sideways glance. Every time your partner says, "It's nothing." I couldn't stop going back over the timeline of her trip. Not just the night she came home, but the days leading up to it. And things that felt unimportant at the time suddenly demanded space in my brain. Like how she used to call me every night before bed when she traveled. We'd talk for a few minutes, about the dog, the weather, whatever mundane thing she was avoiding on her phone. But this time, the first couple days she called, told me about group meditations and hikes along a foggy bluff. Then, nothing. Radio silence for the next 4 days. I'd sent her a photo of the lamp I broke in the hallway. Accidentally knocked it over while vacuuming. Usually, she'd text something like, "Only you would injure a lamp and call it cleaning." Instead, she replied 8 hours later with, "Ouch. You okay?" No emojis. No playfulness. Just sterile. She'd posted a few pictures on her Instagram while she was gone. I didn't think much of them at the time. Ocean views, smoothies, one sunrise yoga sh*t. But when I looked again, something felt off. The framing of the photos was int** mate. They weren't selfies. Whoever took them was standing close. Like too close. You could see the softness in her hairline, the detail in her eyes. Claire had a habit of taking blurry, off-center sh*ts whenever they hung out. These were thoughtful, romantic even. And Claire, supposedly her companion on this wellness trip, was nowhere in the photos. Not tagged, not mentioned, not even a shadow in the background. I clicked back to previous trips with Claire. She was always in those photos, tagged 3 times over, commenting, posting her own angles. But this time it was like she didn't exist. Not even a fire emoji under the yoga picture. I searched her profile. Claire had gone quiet for the entire week. I didn't want to jump to conclusions. Maybe Claire lost her phone. Maybe she was sick. Maybe she'd opted for the full unplug experience. But then I remembered something else. 2 days before Hannah came home, she texted me asking if I could transfer money into our shared card. Said she'd gone over her budget with treatments. I asked what kind, and she just wrote, massage, wine tasting, sunset meditation. Wellness. Only I didn't know. She wasn't a drinker. Wine gave her headaches. She'd said that so many times. I'd built entire dinner parties around it. Now suddenly she's swirling a glass of Cabernet under the red-orange sky, and the receipts from the shared card were vague, too. Spa Del Mar, sunset deck, ocean serenity. Stuff that sounded more like couples' experiences than solo ones. One entry caught my eye. Love ritual package, 2 guests. I googled the spa. It was a 2-hour treatment meant for anniversaries and honeymoons. Hot stone therapy followed by side-by-side sea salt soaks. I sat at the dining table staring at that receipt until my phone buzzed. It was Hannah, just checking in. How's work? I didn't reply. Later that night, after she fell asleep beside me, I got up and walked downstairs to get a glass of water. I wasn't tired. I felt like I was living next to a stranger. I opened the drawer where we kept receipts and paperwork. I wasn't even sure what I was looking for, but I was hoping to find something that proved I was wrong. Something that made me the paranoid husband jumping at shadows. Instead, I found her old wallet. She'd switched purses when she got back, left this one behind. I thumbed through the pockets, old punch cards, a gift card, some expired coupons. Then I found it. A spa voucher, couples package, Ocean Springs, Santa Barbara, expires in 6 months. That same spa showed up on the shared statement. I put the voucher down and just sat in the dark for a while. It felt like I was seeing my own life from the outside, like I'd stumbled into someone else's relationship. The next morning, she kissed me goodbye like nothing was wrong, told me she was heading to the co-op to get produce. I watched her adjust her car seatbelt before pulling out of the driveway. That's when it hit me. The seatbelt was set weirdly low the day she returned. I'd driven her car to the store 2 nights ago, and I'd had to adjust it up. Twice. That was unusual. We're basically the same height, but it had been lowered, like it had been adjusted for someone taller. Or shorter. Someone else had been in her car. Felt like these clues weren't stacking. They were spreading, like cracks in glass. The more I looked, the more I found. Her phone had new passwords. Not just the lock screen. She'd changed her Apple ID login. Her Notes app was now Face ID only. She said it was for privacy. But it hadn't been like that before the trip. And she was on her phone more than usual. But the second I walked into the room, she'd flip the screen down or switch to the home screen with a fake yawn. At night, she scrolled through travel blogs and yoga influencers with a weird level of intensity. Kept saying we should take a vacation soon. Maybe drive up to the coast again. Santa Barbara was nice, she said. You'd like it. I wanted to scream. Instead, I just nodded. Because here's the truth. I was afraid to confront it. If I pushed, and I was wrong, I'd look insane. But if I didn't push and I was right, I was allowing myself to be played like a fool. And then came the ultrasound. She'd found out she was pregnant 3 weeks after returning from California. At first, I was shocked, then happy. We talked about kids before. The timing wasn't perfect, but whoever gets perfect. But as the fear grew in me, I did the math. Her conception window, estimated from the doctor, pointed directly at the week she returned. Not the week after. The week of. That's when the numbers lined up. She swore she didn't know she was pregnant until well after. But then why had she already started taking prenatal vitamins before the test? Why had she moved them to the back of the cabinet when I walked in? I wanted to ask. I really did. But every time I opened my mouth, I saw her face again. That serene, almost smug calm. Like she was already 2 steps ahead of me. Like she knew how to spin it all if I tried to press her. You worry too much, she told me one night, her hand resting on her belly. You're going to be a great dad. Just try to enjoy this. Okay? I nodded. But inside, I was unraveling. Because somewhere between Santa Barbara and that ultrasound photo, something had shifted. Not just between us, in me. I wasn't sleeping. I wasn't eating. I started recording timestamps, saving receipts, snapping pictures of her dashboard, her pill bottles, her browser history. Not obsessively, just strategically. Because deep down, I wasn't chasing paranoia anymore. I was collecting facts. And every fact pointed to the same unspoken truth. Someone else had been there. Not just in Santa Barbara. In her car. In her room. In her. The night I found the archive started like any other. I was fixing her laptop. Not snooping. Not yet. It had been crashing every time she opened Chrome. And I'd offered to take a look because she didn't want to bring it to the Apple Store. They charge for breathing, she joked, handing it to me while stirring something on the stove. I brought it upstairs after dinner, set it on the desk in our shared office, opened it up, and started running basic diagnostics. I half hoped I'd find nothing. I wanted it to be RAM issues, maybe a bad extension, something boring. Instead, I found a hidden archive folder. It was buried inside a time machine backup, not even her main files. Nested in old user accounts, deep enough that you'd need to search by command line or know exactly where to look. I stared at the folder for a long time. It was called simply Wellness. Part of me wanted to close the laptop right there. Pretend I hadn't seen it. But I knew better. You don't hide folders unless there's something worth hiding. I double-clicked it. Inside were hundreds of files. PDFs, images, **TS, message logs. She had backed up her texts, something she'd never mentioned doing, and exported them into clean little conversation threads. The first one I opened was labeled Tim _. My heart sank before I even clicked. Tom Maddox. The first few messages were innocent. Glad you made it in one piece. Claire says hi. Then they escalated. Hannah. That view from your room is unreal. Jealous. Tom. Come see it for yourself. Hannah. Don't tempt me. A few messages later, there was a photo of her. Bare shoulders, towel wrapped loosely, glass of wine in hand, backlit by the ocean through a hotel window. I scrolled down and found a reply. Tom. God, I wish I took that. You're driving me crazy. There were more pictures. Not explicit, but int * mate. Casual. Familiar. His shoes on the floor. Her bra draped on a chair. A selfie of the two of them in bed with mussed hair and sun on their faces. Like they were on vacation. Like they were in love. I wanted to throw the laptop across the room. Instead, I kept digging. I found a PDF from the hotel. Same boutique place in Santa Barbara. Same dates. Same room type. King Suite. Charges showed breakfast for 2, spa services for 2, and one handwritten note from the concierge. Congratulations again. Hope you enjoyed your stay, Mr. and Mrs. Maddox. It hit me like a punch to the gut. There was an exported bank statement next, not ours. A Venmo screenshot *T labeled Wellness Waterwave, sent every Friday for 3 weeks. The amounts were suspiciously consistent. Not massive, but enough to raise an eyebrow. Enough to suggest this wasn't spontaneous. This was coordinated. One folder contained nothing but images of the ocean from their room, labeled by day. Another had appointment confirmations from Ocean Springs Spa, all under his name, but with +1 attached. Then came the part one hadn't prepared for. An exported email draft from her inbox, unsent, with the subject line, "When do we talk?" The body read, "I told him the pregnancy was a surprise, and that it happened after I got home. He didn't question it. Not yet, but I can't hold this forever. We need to figure out what comes next about support and what you want to do. You said you'd help. Please don't disappear on me now." Below that was a forwarded image. An ultrasound. Date stamped for her 3rd appointment. At the top of the message, to Tom Maddox. I stared at it for a long time, waiting to feel something. Anger, grief, shock. But all I felt was cold. There it was. The truth. No interpretation needed. No twisted timelines or vague captions or gut feelings. This was black and white. A record. Plan. a lie that stretched beyond the affair. They weren't just sleeping together. They were preparing to hide a child from its real father. From me. And the worst part? He was willing to bankroll the lie. I found a spreadsheet next. Literally a spreadsheet. Wellness 2025. XLSX. It had tabs for medical, housing, legal, and PR. I opened medical first, dates of appointments, notes about ultrasound timing, vitamins, costs. Housing was just rental leads in nearby suburbs. Legal listed vague comments. Paternity test optional? Shared custody risks. California versus Texas residency. But PR was what broke me. That tab listed names. Mine, Claire, her parents, his wife. Notes next to each. Alex, keep calm, stay nurturing, feed narrative, unplanned, but welcome. Give him ownership of nursery process. Claire, unknown, monitor closeness to Alex, may suspect, do not mention Santa Barbara. Tom's wife, avoid all communication, no overlap. Expenses column, prenatal gifts, counseling receipts. Alex, full coverage assumed until confirmation. It wasn't a love affair. It was a conspiracy. I closed the laptop and walked to the window. The yard was silent. Our dog slept under the porch light. The world looked normal. Too normal. I felt like a character who'd just stepped off stage and realized the play was about them. This wasn't some random lapse in judgment. This was deliberate, coordinated, financially planned, and emotionally managed. They had built a narrative where I was the dad, the eager husband, the emotional anchor, the guy who'd been so tired lately, he didn't see it coming. They wanted me as a prop, placeholder, a liability sponge. That's when something shifted in me. I didn't cry. I didn't throw anything. I didn't scream or storm out or call her in to confront her. I just sat back down and reopened the laptop. I copied the entire folder to an encrypted drive. Saved everything, screensh *TS, message logs, receipts, photo metadata. I ran a metadata scrubber just to confirm timestamps. She hadn't even changed them. Everything matched. Every date. Every location. I pulled up our shared bank account and began cross-referencing charges. I tied hotel stays to her calendar. Spa bills to Venmo logs. Messages to timestamps on her social posts. The story was airtight and devastating. And yet, in that moment I wasn't crushed. I was clear. I started documenting everything. Made a folder of my own. Created a spreadsheet not for wellness but for extraction. I labeled it Exit. I opened a new email account. Booked an appointment with a lawyer. Found a short-term rental an hour away. Furnished, pet-friendly, flexible lease. I requested bank statements for the last 3 years and flagged every transaction during her trip. I contacted a lab to learn what was required to compel a paternity test post-birth. Then I walked back downstairs and sat with her while she folded baby clothes. I smiled when she showed me a onesie. I kissed her when she yawned and leaned against me. And when she asked if I wanted to help build the crib next weekend, I said, of course, because now I understood. This wasn't a marriage anymore. It was a negotiation, and I wasn't going to yell my way out of it. I was going to walk out clean, quiet, and ready. There's a quiet moment after betrayal, after the shock fades, after the wave crests, when you feel nothing. That's when you start making decisions. Not out of pain, not out of vengeance, but out of clarity. That's where I was. I didn't tell anyone, not my friends, not my brother, not even my therapist. I didn't rage online or smash plates or sleep on the couch. I kept everything exactly as it was. Routine, calm, unassuming, because now I had to play the role she wrote for me. The doting husband, the expectant father, the man with no idea. And while she lived in the comfort of her own performance, I was laying the groundwork for an exit she wouldn't see coming. The first thing I did was back everything up. I created redundancies, cloud storage, encrypted USBs, one copy hidden at the office under the false bottom of a filing cabinet drawer. I wasn't just thinking about divorce. I was thinking about what she and Tom might do if the story started unraveling. Would she delete texts? Fabricate new ones? Would he pretend he didn't know her well? I had already learned not to underestimate how far someone would go to protect a lie. I kept receipts. Screensh * TED timestamps. Took photos of her belly next to the crib. I assembled just to prove how far along she was when she smiled and said, "I can't believe this is our life. Our life." I opened a separate checking account. Quietly redirected my payroll to a new bank. Slowly siphoned money out of the joint account over a 3-week period. Nothing large enough to trigger suspicion. 50 here, 100 there. Labeled as car maintenance, office lunch, donation. I created a paper trail of benevolence. Then I set up a P.O. box in a neighboring zip code. I told her it was for a surprise birthday project. She didn't ask many questions. She liked surprises as long as she was the one giving them. I kept my new keys on a separate ring I locked in my glove compartment. At night, I researched attorneys. I found one who specialized in family law with a focus on paternity fraud. She had a reputation for being meticulous and unemotional. I sent her a 10-paragraph email with subject line, "Consultation request. Sensitive and confidential." She replied in under an hour, "We should talk immediately." We met 2 days later. I brought my evidence. She didn't flinch once. Just nodded, took notes, and outlined the steps we'd need to take if I wanted to pursue separation with paternity verification. She used phrases like legal restraint, presumptive father rights, and fraudulent inducement of parental duty. Her voice was clinical, clean. It was exactly what I needed. We drafted a legal roadmap. No sudden moves, no accusations, just quiet documentation, controlled leverage. At home, I continued to perform. I went to every doctor appointment. I took videos of her belly moving, painted the nursery walls soft green, read baby name books. I even went to prenatal yoga with her once, smiling like a fool the whole time while she introduced me to the group as her rock. That part wasn't a lie. I was a rock, unmoving, cold beneath the surface, sharp if you press too hard. She had no idea. One night, while we were watching a documentary, she fell asleep on my shoulder. I could feel her breath on my neck, her hand resting over my chest like we were still in the honeymoon phase. I sat there for an hour without moving. I wasn't mourning. I was memorizing what it felt like to live inside a lie so well constructed even the liar couldn't see it anymore. A week later, I found her iPad on the counter. She'd left it open, screen unlocked. She was in the shower. I told myself not to check. I told myself it didn't matter anymore. But I did. She was logged into a shared calendar with Tom. Color-coded entries. Prenatal support, silent check-in, Santa Fe option, and one labeled, simply, "Our line holds." I clicked it. A note inside, "Stick to narrative. Smile. Deflect. Do not engage suspicion." She was scripting me in real time, and I was playing along so well, she didn't even see the trap closing. After that, I made one final move. I contacted Claire. Not directly, just a burner email. No subject. Just a brief message. "Claire, I have information I believe you need to see. It's about Tom and Hannah. I'm not asking you to trust me. I'm asking you to verify. If you want to understand what's really been happening, reply yes." I knew she'd recognize the signature. I always signed my notes to her, instead of Alex. She used to tease me for it. The next day, I had my answer. One word, yes. I didn't send her anything yet. I was waiting for the birth. My lawyer insisted it was the best leverage point. No legal presumptions could be challenged until the child was officially in the world. So I waited. I played husband. I played father. I went to a baby shower where I stood beside Hannah and thanked guests for their incredible support, while wondering how many of them would side with her once the truth came out. She opened gifts labeled, "For Baby Maddox," and laughed, saying, "Wow, that's weird. Wrong label." Then she gave me a look, just a flick of panic, before returning to her champagne-free smile. I played it off. "It's a typo," I said, chuckling. "Probably meant for Baby McAllister." Everyone laughed, except Claire. She didn't smile once that afternoon. She was starting to suspect. I could see it in the way she watched her husband's phone like a hawk. The way she left the room when Hannah spoke. Another crack. Perfect. By the end of the 8th month, I had every piece I needed. Photos, messages, finances, ultrasounds, records of communication between Hannah and Tom, notes, metadata. My lawyer had the full timeline. The burner email to Claire had become a trickle of correspondence. She wanted answers. I told her to wait until after the birth. Everything hinged on that test. The moment that swab hit the lab, it would be real. I rehearsed my response in the mirror. Not anger, not heartbreak, just fact. The truth doesn't need a performance. A week before Hannah's due date, I finalized the lease on my rental. Quiet neighborhood. Month to month. Furnished. Dog-friendly. I packed a go bag and stored it in the trunk of my car. Just the basics: clothes, chargers, copies of documents. My laptop. The drive. I stayed at home, of course. Played the part. But I was gone already. Emotionally. Strategically. Entirely. I started sleeping with earplugs. Not because of noise. Because I didn't want to hear her anymore. One night she stood in the doorway to our bedroom and asked if I was scared. Of being a dad? She said softly. I looked up from my book and said, "No." She smiled, touched her belly, and walked away humming a lullaby. And in that moment, I realized something terrifying. She thought she'd won. Not just the lie. The life. She thought she had rewritten the story so cleanly, I'd never know my name wasn't supposed to be in the credits. That's when I knew I had to finish this perfectly. No explosions. No text threads leaked to the world. No screaming in the hospital hallway. Just silence, precision, and a plan she couldn't rewrite. The petition was filed 2 days before her due date. Quietly. No warning. No announcement. My lawyer submitted it electronically under sealed cause, citing irreconcilable differences with a request for postnatal genetic confirmation before any presumption of legal paternity could be acknowledged. The clause was specific. Legally, in Texas, a husband is automatically presumed the father if the child is born during the marriage. But with sufficient cause and a credible petition supported by evidence, that assumption could be paused, pending DNA results. My evidence was enough. More than enough. The court approved the motion without delay. My attorney called to confirm, "It's done. You're protected. As of this moment, any claim that child is yours, financially or legally, is suspended until test results are in. She can't move fast enough to get ahead of it." I remember staring at the phone after that call, feeling a strange, weightless calm, like I had just clipped the last wire on a live bomb. The very next morning, I began documenting every expense tied to the pregnancy. Not for sentiment, strictly legal. I pulled every receipt from prenatal appointments, ultrasounds, vitamins, nursery furniture, even the custom stroller she just had to have. All of it logged, time-stamped, tagged to our joint account with notations showing my sole contributions. The spreadsheet grew by the hour. Supportive husband provides full pregnancy coverage under fraudulent pretense of paternity. That was the note my attorney added to the claim draft. We appended a recovery clause, a formal request for reimbursement should the child prove to be another man's. Texas law allowed it, especially in cases where financial deception had been paired with emotional misrepresentation. Paternity fraud, in legal terms, is often hard to prove. But when it's paired with clear documentation and a pattern of concealment, it becomes something else entirely: premeditated misattribution. And under civil code, that can mean restitution. Meanwhile, I kept up the act at home. Hannah had no idea. She thought we were just nesting, folding clothes, rearranging drawer space, reading baby books aloud in bed like it meant something. She'd rest her head on my shoulder and sigh about future birthdays and preschool enrollment. I'd nod and take mental notes about her language, how she never once said, "our baby," when talking to her mom on the phone. It was always "the baby," or "this little one," never "ours." She thought she was keeping control, but she had no idea she was already standing in a courtroom, evidence stacked against her, every step of her deception time-stamped and cross-referenced. I created a timeline, One that tracked everything from the day she booked her wellness trip to the exact moment I found the ultrasound forwarded to Tom. It was a legal storyboard. *TS, receipts, metadata from photos, copies of digital conversations, cash transfers. Everything lined up. Then I prepared the dossier for Claire. This was delicate. Timing mattered. If I released it too soon, Hannah or Tom might try to shift the narrative, muddy the water, manipulate emotion. But if I waited too long, I'd miss the window when silence still looked like grace and not guilt. So I staged it. The day the paternity results came in sealed and certified, I would activate 2 emails. The first to Claire. The subject line, "You deserve the truth." The second, to her attorney, CC'd. The dossier included the hotel receipt with Tom's name used during Hannah's retreat. Photos from the hotel room, clearly not Claire in those images. Date-stamped *TS of texts between Hannah and Tom with location metadata attached. A bank transfer log showing repeated payments from Tom labeled wellness, timed exactly to Hannah's trip. The forwarded ultrasound email, sent by Hannah to Tom with a subject line that read, "She's healthy." A shared calendar between the two of them, with recurring entries matching doctor appointments and notes like, "Stick to story." Claire would receive all of it. Neatly labeled, chronologically structured, no embellishment, just facts. A separate note outlined potential asset shielding Tom had initiated 2 months prior, possibly in anticipation of fallout. I didn't explain how I found that. She'd figure it out. Meanwhile, I prepared my own legal protections. I amended my will, reassigned power of attorney, removed Hannah from all health proxies and financial accounts, transferred property rights for anything solely acquired during marriage into trust-held assets that couldn't